Greetings, YouTube. This is the Garage Autonomist. After listening to the MRA idiots drone on about feminism and their mythical power that feminists have in our society, one of their favorite talking points, or rather myths, is the curious case of the 70%. The 70% is the group that initiates divorce, and that group consists of women. You see, as the MRA/anti-feminist narrative goes, due to the no-fault divorce laws, it's the women who feel emboldened enough to end their perfect marriages and dare to leave their husband so that they can get money and live the life of Riley, while their men sleep in the gutter of aloneness and despair, jerking off sadly into tissue and crying themselves asleep until one day they can wake up after taking the red pill, showing them the ways of how men have been enslaved by the great and powerful yet invisible matriarchy. A matriarchy that still shows an overwhelming male majority in executive positions across the corporate, government, and military sectors of society. Funny, but being married for 20 years, you see all kinds of breakups and a range of different reasons as to why some of the marriages around me did not work. And I have seen men use those pesky no-fault divorce laws to their advantage as well as with women. I mean, deciding to leave a husband who might be abusing you emotionally and physically for years is totally comparable to a man needing to divorce his wife because she done got an old wrinkly old face and he wants to wife up the side piece 15 years his junior. But hey, I'm not really here to discuss that. I want to talk about the fact that 70% of divorces are initiated by women. The missing piece that MRAs love for us to not see and talk about and ask about is why that is the case. Because as I pointed out a second ago, the missing piece is filled by MRA narrative, and any narrative they have to offer should always be questioned because they are MRAs. Now, I've tried to research that part, and maybe my queries are faulty in the way that I wrote them, using over 3 databases and Google's search engine. And I got a bunch of hits, but they gave me different things that I was looking for, but nothing that I was looking for. So therefore, I turned to Dr. Christy Winters, and I presented to her what I was looking for, and the good doctor came back with a link that I have provided in the low bar that gives a little insight as to why women might have the tendency to pull the trigger on their marriages. Social scientists have previously argued that women initiate most divorces because they are more sensitive to relationship difficulties. Professor Michael Rosenfeld, an associate professor of sociology at Stanford University, counters this argument and saying that there's a little bit more to it than that. Women seem to have a predominant role in initiating divorces in the U.S. as far back as there is data from a variety of sources, all the way back to the 1940s, says Professor Michael Rosenfeld. This also counters the MRAs/traditional MRAs narrative that all hell broke loose with the frivolous divorces after the 1960s, or rather after the 1970s, following the rise of the second wave of feminism. Now, the piece goes into a comparison between who initiates breakups between married couples and non-married couples, but nonetheless, we are given an idea as to why the wives want out. Rosenfeld's study found that women are more likely to initiate divorces because as married women, and note that it's married heterosexual women who lead in this tendency, reported lower levels of relationship quality than married men. Quoting now, Rosenfeld said his results support the feminist assertion that some women experience heterosexual marriage as oppressive or uncomfortable, and that marriage as an institution has been a little slow to catch up with expectations for gender equality. Wives still take their husbands' surnames and are sometimes pressured to do so. Husbands still expect their wives to do the bulk of the housework and the bulk of the child care. Now, the comparison to non-marital relationships is still the crux of the study where I'm getting this info from. They wanted to show that there may be the possible factor that non-married couples experience a more egalitarian relationship than traditional married couples do. Rosenfeld's study even found that the breakups of the non-marital couples seemed to be egalitarian and gender neutral in nature than the married couples. Rosenfeld's analysis relies on data from the 2009-2015 waves of the nationally representative How Couples Meet and Stay Together survey. He considers 2,262 adults ages 19 to 94 who had opposite-sex partners in 2009. By 2015, 371 of these people had broken up or gotten divorced. Now, a few things as one who was in an egalitarian marriage. 1. Most of the married couples that I knew that were traditional or moderately traditional, where they wound up ending, was because while the wife shouldered the bulk of the child rearing and house management, she happened to also be working a full-time job. The domestic labor was never distributed equally with the husband, as he was only just working. 2. The women who were not working as they got older began to realize that in the face of financial problems, where the main breadwinner, the husband, might have had issues keeping it together, the wife had zero fallback to take care of herself if they found themselves with no income coming in at all, or if she had to guess that her marriage should end abruptly. And I have seen this with over 10 couples we were friends with. She would be up Schitt's Creek financially, with her being outside of the workplace for a huge chunk of the earlier part of her adult life, leaving her in a not-so-good position as a job candidate because of lack of work history. 3. In both situations, the wives pulled the trigger because they were fostering unhappiness for various reasons, mainly due to the uneven work distribution of labor at home and the expectations fostered on them. So read the Psychology of Today article and the Science Daily article, and while you may draw your own conclusions as to why women initiate divorce, at least the data provided might bridge the gap between the numbers that the MRAs like to whine about and reality. This is the Garage Autonomist.